Hey, what's up? John Sonmez here from simpleprogrammer.com. So I'm back from Europe, and I wanted to do a video talking a little bit about what happened right after I got back, what's happened in the last few days. It's sort of an honest video, as if all the other ones aren't, but a genuine video about some of the struggles I went through, and just something that it reminded me of that I think I can empathize a little bit with some of you who have been struggling with this kind of lack of motivation and feeling bad about yourself that really breeds more lack of motivation and less happening. And I guess the best way I could describe it is that I felt for the first time in a very long time that I was looking over the abyss, over the edge of the abyss, and I was close to falling in. And what I mean by that was that I was going through this period, and maybe it was jet lag, but no, I doubt it was just jet lag, but where I was just feeling down, where I was feeling, and it's more than just depression, it's a lack of hope for the future, and maybe that's what depression is to some degree, but I was feeling like I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not sure if I want to do videos anymore. I'm not sure if I want to run this business anymore. I'm not sure if I want to lift weights and be on my diet, and why am I doing all this stuff, right? And this, I've been here before, right? I mean, this is something that you will always go through, not just as an entrepreneur, I've said as an entrepreneur, but in life, right? I mean, all of us will have to go through these struggles where you doubt everything, you doubt your existence and the reasons why you're doing what you're doing, right? Especially if you're doing anything difficult in life, anything hard, you're going to have this. This is going to happen to you, okay? And it usually comes at the end of screwing up or having some kind of backtrack. And we're all going to backtrack, right? And so this is one of those things that I had to remind myself, actually, of some of the things that I talk about on this channel, okay? So just to give you, I'm trying to think of how to saliently present this to you, this idea. But essentially, it comes down to this. It's something that I realized, okay, was that when you screw up, okay, and let me back up a little bit and tell you about what is my quote screw up. But it's not necessarily a screw up. It's just a setback. And before I left for Europe, okay, I was in probably the best shape that I've been in, okay? And I worked hard for that. I mean, I really did. I've been running and lifting weights and sticking to the diet, right? I've done a lot of things in order to get to that. So to some degree, I was taking a lot of pride in how I was looking, in my physique, and I was taking also a lot of identity in it, right? So I was letting my identity be associated, again, with my physique or my physical accomplishments, as opposed to something that's more permanent, let's say, which is where your identity should be, which is your character, which is everything who you've become through the journey that you've faced, right? The real things that don't fall away, right? That can't be lost, right? And that's the inner fortress, as a lot of Stokes would call it. That's where your identity should be placed. And I've made this mistake before. I did this video a while back where I talked about my pec tear, and I talked about losing my identity and how that affected me, and how I used to be the biggest guy in the gym, and then that happened, and I could no longer have that ever again in my life, because it was a complete tear of the pec, and I lost all my strength, and I went down into this kind of depression and got fat, and all these things happened. But then I dissociate from that identity. But then you always try to form new things to latch onto in this physical world, your ego does. And I reassociated identity with this new ripped physique of John, not the biggest guy in the gym, but the best looking one, the most ripped one, right? And this was another identity that I associated with, which is an unhealthy identity, right? It's not who you are. Those things could change. You could lose that in an instant, or you could go to Europe for 2 months and eat a bunch of pasta in Italy and become fat. Not that I'm like super fat, but you know what I'm saying? Is like, and that's what happened, right? So, and I did some videos on this, and some of this, of course, I'm just as guilty as justification as you are. You can check out my video on justification here, but some of it's justification, right? To some degree, but I did say this. I did say to myself, well, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to Italy again. Italy is known for some of the best cuisine in the world, right? And you could say this is rationalization or justification, but I'm going to eat some fucking pasta while I'm here and have some gelato. And I did, all right? And so I went off the diet and whatnot, but I did stick to my workout routine 100%, right? I didn't miss a lift. I didn't miss a run. I, in fact, ran a half marathon in Italy, right, in my travels. And so I did really good, give myself an A+ on that. So where am I going with this? What I'm saying is that, but when I came back, okay, I get on the scale, I'm like 25 pounds heavier. I look in the mirror, I'm like, no more six-pack. I go to the gym and I'm like, I guess I didn't gain as much muscle. I don't have as much strength. I thought I gained a bunch of strength while I was gone, but it seems like it's less, right? I go back home, I look at the work I have to do. There's a lot of emails. I'm like, the book sales are kind of down, right? I'm like, I got to record an audio version of this book. I got to do more videos, and I got to get, gear for and I'm just looking at all this stuff, right? And I'm like, man, I was doing so good, and then now look where I'm at, right? And my motivation got sapped, right? I just felt, like I said, depressed. I felt like there wasn't any point. Like, why am I doing this, right? And what I realized was that, this is kind of where I'm going with this, is that I had this empathy for people who are in this situation kind of all the time. And why I say that is because what I realized was that when you're winning, okay, when you're succeeding, when you're making progress, when you're having growth in life, it's sort of like every day the high water mark moves a little higher. And it doesn't mean that you don't ever have a little bit of backtrack, but you mess up and you don't have a new high water mark. You don't have a new high water mark every day, but it's in your purview, right? You can see it. You can see where the high water mark was, and you can see it's within your reach. You can get there. So when you're succeeding and when you're doing that, when you're growing, it's easy to have motivation. It's easy to feel like you can get to where you need to go, because your goals are in sight, because you're excited for the next day. I mean, the grind is still the grind, and you have to do a lot of hard work, and you might not enjoy doing that stuff, but you can look forward to the next day saying, I wonder where the high watermark will be. I'm making progress, right? But when you don't have that, your motivation tends to go away, right? This is that whole looking to the abyss, right? And I did this video a while back, and I've done this before on tethers, right? I did one on this thing that I was wearing from the Tony Robbins, where I kind of screwed up, and I was like, okay, well, I want to get back to where I was, and this will remind me every day. I've shaved my head before for this particular reason. I'm not going to go into details on tethers, but you can look it up on my channel. But I think tethers are useful. But this was well beyond. Like, this was for me, which hasn't happened in a long time, almost a tether snap, right? I mean, I had gone pretty far out of the spaceship, okay, and kind of cut the cord. I was floating out there in space because I haven't been off of a diet for 2 months at a time before, and had this much of a backward progress, at least in my mind, and just how I was feeling, right? And so I got to this point where I definitely lost motivation, right? I definitely couldn't see the high water mark anymore, because it's like 10 weeks out, right? It's like a long time. There's a long slog here. And so what I kind of realized from this is that, and I'm feeling better now, right? Today, I'm feeling better. I'm still not 100%, but my mindset changed, and that's what I want to share with you today. I know this is a long leading up to this, but I think this is worth it, because I think this will benefit you, because you will be here at some point in your life, whether you've had success and you lose it, whether you backtrack, or whether you've never had success and you're not motivated and you don't know why. Because I'm going to give you the secret. I'm going to give you the way to get back on the fucking horse. And so this sort of goes along with that. This is another piece of this, which is something that I didn't realize until, because I'd never looked so far into the abyss. Right? At least for not a long time, right? I'd always been within sight of my goals. At least I can get back, I can bounce back. And this time I had to really face it and really, struggle with these things. And what I realized was that when you lose momentum like that, and that was a total loss of momentum, right? The rock stopped, then what you have to do is you have to realize that the mental state that you're in now, and I sort of said this at the beginning of this trip a little bit, but even more so, I'm doubling down on this. The mental state that you're in now is not your permanent state, and it's not really what you think, right? That you don't have motivation now. You lack what you feel like is the enthusiasm for the thing, right? But you got to grind it out for some period of time. You just got to put the blinders on, put your head down, and say, I don't feel this, I don't believe this, I don't even care about this anymore, but I'm just gonna fucking do it for 2 weeks, or whatever it is, 4 weeks, or whatever it is, knowing that if you do that, what's going to happen, okay, is that you'll eventually get new momentum, right? The old momentum is dead. And I think one of the big mistakes that we make, and I talk to my coaching clients a lot about this because they often make this mistake, is that they screw up because everyone inevitably will screw up. I screw up all the time, right? You've seen on this channel. Do I have a screw up playlist? I think we do, so right, where I've screwed up all the time. So anyway, they'll inevitably screw up. And what they'll want to do, right, and I did a video on this in particular in Las Vegas as well, I remember, and what they'll want to do is they'll want to get back to even, right? And they'll want to get back to where they was. They'll see it as a loss, right? That's the wrong perspective, because then you're seeing things as trying to get back to even as opposed to a new beginning, a new path, right? And making progress. It sort of stunts your momentum, because when you count things as a loss and you think you want to get back to even, then you don't get to generate new momentum until you get to that point and start having new high water marks. And what you got to do is you got to erase the old high water mark. You got to say, well, you know what? That was fun for a while, but we're starting over now, and let's erase that high water mark. Let's forget where it was, and let's start new. And we're gonna have a new high water mark, right? A brand new one, and we're gonna keep on watching that one go up, so we can get momentum again, so we can feel enthusiastic, so we can feel like we're growing, even if we had some kind of a setback, right? Because that's just how life works, right? I mean, you have to deal with the present, what has happened now, cut the losses, right? Start over. And so that's the mindset I've adopted. And so the solution to this is, like I said, is one, to do that, is to erase the high water mark wherever it was before. It doesn't matter. You're on a new one now, okay? You're starting over. And to just fucking grind it out for however long it takes, like a week or 2 weeks. And what will happen is you'll be creating a new high water mark, a brand new one, okay? Forgetting about where the old one was. It might have been way up there, but that's fine. And you'll be gaining momentum again. And eventually what will happen, and it's already starting to kick in for me after just 3 days, is that you feel like, okay, I'm making progress. And once you feel like you're making progress, it becomes addictive. You feel like you can make more progress, and you get that momentum rolling, and it becomes easier and easier. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a minute. I feel like I have motivation again. Oh, I feel like I have enthusiasm again. Okay, I feel like I can make it again. And now you're running, and you're actually enjoying the run, even though the grind is still hard, and you're getting back on track. And that's so, so critical. It's so easy at this point to give up, to break, to fall into the abyss, to let go of the tether, to fly away, and to let everything fail, right? I mean, that's the easy thing to do, and most people do that. But you got to remember, and this is also if you're just stalled out and you've never been going, if you've never turned over the engine and you've never been driving the car, and you're wondering, and you're like, John, man, I watch your videos, like they inspire me, but then I'm pathetic. I'm not doing anything with my life. I don't have the discipline. Well, just remember, like, don't wait for the motivation. It's not going to come until the momentum comes. Momentum, then motivation. So if you're in that position, right, then here's what I want you to do. Just start doing. Don't care, just make the plan for the goal. You can do that. And whether you feel like fucking doing it or not, whether you feel any motivation, whether you have any hope or any belief in it, just give it 2 weeks. Just give it 2 weeks of grinding it out as hard as you can and giving it your maximum effort. I mean, what's the downside of that, right? So what? And I had to talk myself through this, right? Because I was like, I just don't feel like this. I just feel like sitting in bed, or I'm just gonna fucking eat some shit or whatever. That'll make me feel better. But then I said, wait a minute, John. What if you just fucking did it for 2 weeks? What if you just fucking grind it out? Just go to the gym, just go do your runs, just go eat your fucking diet, right? And do the stuff, the work you're supposed to do, pump up those pomodori. What if you just did that for 2 weeks? What would happen? What would you lose, right? If at the end of the 2 weeks, if you're like, well, fuck this, I'm done, I'm out of here, I'm checking out, guys, that's fine. Then quit, right? But there's no loss, so you might as well give it a try. And it didn't take very long. I mean, that was probably the mindset shift that started me on the path that regained momentum, but it doesn't take very long when you take that. So again, what I'm saying here is that whether you've fallen from a high place, whether you've never been in a high place, whether you're in the lows of a low, you have to remember this. You gotta just fucking grind it out, regardless of what your brain says, regardless of your emotions say, until you get momentum. Once you have momentum, then things change. And you can't see it right now. You see, this is the thing, is you can't see it right now. And that's where I was at. It was like, I don't remember who the fuck I am. Right? Then I watched the Simple Programmer trailer video, and I said, that's who the fuck you are, dude. That's who the fuck you are. And so, are you going to drop that so easily? You're going to lose that so easily? No, I'm not going to fucking let that piece fall into the abyss. No, not going to let that happen. So, it doesn't mean that I had instant motivation. It doesn't mean that I still have it. I mean, I still don't want to necessarily go for a run or do the stuff that I'm supposed to do, but I'm feeling better about it. And I know that I'm getting momentum because now I'm like, okay, every day I'm making progress. I'm starting to believe that new high water mark and starting to make progress on that. And I know from experience that when I get 4 weeks into this journey, if I can stick on this horse, if I don't fall off, or if I do fall off, I come right back on. But if I can stick to this for about 4 weeks or so, that momentum that high water mark is going to start moving, and that momentum is going to be such that it's going to carry me forward and it's going to make things easier. And this is why, my friends, why the rich get richer. This is why the successful get more successful. This is why the dudes that get the girls get more of the girls. It's all the same principle, which is that when you got it, you get more of it, right? This is, I think this is in the Bible too, folks. Right? But this is true. This is why. It has to do with momentum. It has to do with when you and the lack of it. More so the lack of it, right? Because when you don't feel it, when you're down, that's when you want to be out. And you got to fight that. You got to fight that urge with every ounce of your fucking being and realize that just because you feel like you're a fucking loser, just because the more that you feel like you're a fucking loser, in fact, the more that you feel like you failed, the more that you feel like you're a fuck up, the more that you got to fucking just put your nose to the grindstone and just fucking do it, whether you feel like it or not. That's the only cure. That's the only cure, right? All right. That's all I got for you today. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Click the bell to subscribe, super subscribe, so you don't miss any videos. And I'll talk to you next time.